one idea I had in this, for example, the rock class, this little thing that tells, okay, you can decide not to spend energy on one attack, but make a roll because you're doing the last second dodge or that kind of thing, you know? And as if you tilt it in a way, I'm going to be rough, but you have like 75% chances of having success with that. If you can't do it all, you're going to use that, and most of the time it will go well and be elated because, okay, I did my thing, it worked well, but then that one time it will go bad and you will change the story. You will be like, okay, I was bad before, now I'm really, really worse. And you have to do something with, I mean, if the players keep having options after bad stuff happen, stuff happening to players is awesome. It's good. And so the problem, let's call it a problem, the possibilities are so many that narrowing down what works, it's very difficult.
Well, I agree. And one thing that's helpful is that you can look at the pieces that you actually have and say, all right, we're going to hold certain things fixed. We don't want to spin all the dials at once in the design. We'll go crazy.
Yeah.
We need to discuss at some point the action points of Hero Wars, the original Hero Wars. Because of their similarity to energy, one of the things that was interesting about them is that not only were they your bank, right, against the effects of the opponents, but you also expended them, things like giving other characters action points, which was handled mechanically quite arbitrarily. Here, I'll give you 5. But in the fiction, you threw him an axe.
Yes.
Right, something like that. Now, in your game, again, only for thinking purposes, okay? Not for as a suggestion. Can I simply hand you some of my energy?
Yes, there is basically, for example, the first, maybe I meant the warlord, the deity warlord works like a bit like this. The defenders also, because they say, oh, incoming attack, I scream at you, there's something going to happen to you, and I spend some of my energy to reduce the success on you, or maybe I cheer you up. I mean,
You talked about that in there. And
I can do a bit of that. I can say, if you're next to me, I can use my shield. Or if I'm a defender, I can take the blow instead of you. But there is always, if I do this stuff, there is always an element of risk because
these are the things. These are the things that are going to make your system exciting and fun. These are the things that are going to do the that where the random factors. If I hadn't done that, I might have lived through. In the next attack, I got really hurt.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the energy to deal with it. The next attack, I got really hurt. That wouldn't have been the case if I had let you suffer, right?
Yes.
But that's okay. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to say this was inevitable given what I chose to do, and you accept that the dice involved were also in their way inevitable, right? Because they did hit that value. That's what came in on me over my defense. I didn't have the energy to deal with it. Here's the other thing. I think you should start looking at wounds as a good thing, as a designer. Right? Right now, it seems as though a lot of the design is about avoiding being wounded. I think you should start enjoying wounds.
Yes.
And say, all right, what is play like when I'm wounded? Let's be after the fight. And yes, I know I'll get my energy back for the fight, the next fight. I get that. That's fine. I'm talking about conditions of having been defeated or at least having taken some negative consequences.
Yes.
What is play like then? Because if you spend your time making sure that never happens,
Mm-hmm.
then the fights are fake.
Yes.
So
No,
that's right.
that's something that is important, and that's a part what the mathematics being stable helps me, because if I say, okay, these wounds mean the dragon thingy has bitten you, so you have a huge bite on your chest. It's hard even to breathe. So I'm going to lower one. But your mind processes this, okay, this is terrible, because now we're back to a d6. But in the maths, I'm not really fucking you, because it's a difference, but it's not as much as you would. Your mind processes it as something that's always on your head. I'm hurt. Mm-hmm. I'm not at my, but you still work as a character.
Right.
As opposed, for example, again, to Savage Worlds, my wounds are a penalty of -1 on a d6. And that's devastating. You become completely inefficient when you are wounded. So you need to make it fun for the player while...
Exactly. Did I mention to you something that I observed in early Champions play a lot? And I played this game for a decade, so I, many people. This is something that's kind of interesting. In Champions, tissue damage is called body damage.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no mechanical rules-based penalty to taking body damage as long as it's positive. There's no penalty. And so you don't actually have very much body, but you can take half your body damage and you're, no rules changes in the rules. Players would voluntarily state what their characters cannot do because they're wounded. They would actually impose rules on their character.
Yes.
Like, I can't run fast now. I'm too hurt. Things like that. Because they actually liked the idea of their superhero fighting while impaired.
Yes.
And I found that very instructive. Why did I like that in Champions and yet dislike most rule sets that imposed specific penalties based on that kind of damage? What was the difference? Why did I like that? Why did I do it to my own character? Why did someone else do it to theirs? Other people did. It's not because I'm the saintly role player. This was a lot of people, right? This was ordinary response to the rules. So this means there's some factor there. And if you can think about that, let's see what's fun. Let's see what life is like in my game when you win the fight. Everybody's alive even. But there are after effects of the fight that we must live with. And this is something that you can see in Hero Wars. Because, yes, you're going to get all your action points for the next fight based on the abilities you're using. You'll get that many action points. That's great. But what is your condition following the fight? What abilities are not available to you, except under certain, upcoming fictional situations, if you can get into them? What particular abilities don't you have, and what do you look like, right? How do people look at you now? How what can we even treat it as kind of a blanket penalty? Who's going to take your wealth seriously when you look all beat up like that?
Yes.
Things like that. That you might just have a blanket penalty to doing everything just because you look beat to shit. You need to do something about that.
Your example, it's good because it brings it into the fiction. I mean, you do, when you said, what clicked in my, people would drive cool then. So, for example, now I go back to my game and say, okay, you've got hurt in your leg. So maybe I can tell you can't really dodge. So when something happens to you, you have to think of something different.
Right.
If you're going to try to fight close to a cover because you can put yourself behind the cover.
I've got a hurt leg. I need to be behind this rock, for Christ's sake, obviously. Yeah.
So if you can keep it on that level,
exactly.
It's fun because you're not something taken from you. You're doing something deep instead of something less.
Right.
And I think that can be interesting.
Yeah. I completely agree. So those are my kind of things I wanted to cover today a little bit. That's kind of my list.
Okay. Now I have even more on my mind.
Well, I bet you do. Given there's another exercise that I want to take us through in another meeting, if it's okay with you.
Perfect.
But so maybe, and you of course have things that you're going to want to think about or talk about. But at the moment, let's go back and have you look at your whole sequence of fighting and damage, and realize that you can actually go all the way back to the character builds as well, and say, where is it that we want that uncertainty to appear? And I think that you'll like that. To go back to the tension mechanic, it is a great thing, but I don't think it needs to be in combat. I think that might be more of a situational modifier outside of combat. And play a stronger role there, is my guess. But anyway, I need to know more about what play is like outside of combat. Later.
Yes. Okay. I think I have a lot of stuff to think about.
Excellent.
Okay.
Do you have any? I've said this to people before, and maybe people are going to. Maybe it's boring, but when I'm working on a game, a lot of the time I have an image, usually stolen. Just an image from a comic or an image from the internet, maybe even just a graphic of some kind. And I put that on every document that I'm working on.
Okay.
And it's, it's just a cool image that speaks to me for this game.
Okay.
And what helps me is that it serves as an anchor. If I'm making a decision, I can always go to that image and say, does this work? Right? At this pure level of complete aesthetics.
Okay.
I mean, there was an example of a fantasy game that a friend was working on, and they had a very romantic, very evocative, very, very cool graphic that they just used in their head and in general. This is the game. That's the game. And when I found that they were working really, really, really hard on some combat option of how to escape if a group of people have jumped on you. And then I went and looked at that picture, and the picture was all this kind of surrealistic, noble, magical kind of being in the middle of all this intrigue. And who's got the power and information, and what's the dark secrets of the situation and stuff like that. And I said, really, do you really think that a mechanic that's specific to escaping from a group of people tackling you, is this really in your game?
Does it matter?
Yeah, that much effort, that much specificity of the rule, is that really about what you see in this picture?
But that's the curse of wanting to have a rule every single bit. You don't need it if your game is not about that.
So that's what, in your situation, why I think knowing that picture or something like it would be very helpful about right now.
I need to think about this. Yeah. I need to figure. Right. Yeah.
And sometimes it depends on the person. Some people are good at designing logos. So if you just design the logo of the title of your game for some people, that's good enough. For other people, it's a picture that they really like by some famous painter. For other people, it could be anything. It really could. But it's very helpful.
Okay.
And it seems like
I can already.
Yeah, excellent. There, I thought you could. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Great. So let's be in touch by email and talk more about other things.
Perfect. That's great for me. So we can settle up the details of we go on with these. And okay, it was very helpful for me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'd love to continue. So I'll see you later.
Thank you very much. Bye.